Hi guys, and welcome to another video. It's been a while, but I hope it's worth it. Today we're talking about the Xt-2. Is it good enough for professional work, for weddings and events? Come out after the break and I'll give you my full rundown on this camera. Catch you in a sec. What's happening guys? It's been a bit of time. I'm sorry I haven't done any videos, but I've been really busy shooting events. So I'm hoping today's going to be a good one and a worthwhile one for you to watch. In a nutshell, you know what it's about. Xt-2, and is it worth buying this camera or switching out from full frame for, you know, professional work, weddings and events? I'm just concentrating on more towards the professional end of working with this camera for today. So I've got my surface and I've got my notes here of what I want to talk about. Before we start, I want just to say that everything that I'm going to tell you today, as usual, is my personal, honest experience with the camera. I know sometimes people get a little bit emotional and they start kicking out when they hear something that they don't want to hear about their brand. So, although I am I'm very heavily invested into the Fuji system, if something's not good about it, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you. I want to tell you the truth, because there's too many people that say something on YouTube and they say honest stuff on YouTube, and then before you know it, there's certain photography channels that slam them and call them idiots and stuff like that. And I think that's unfair, because a lot of the people slamming them, in my opinion, are not what we would call professional photographers. They're just not. And what I mean by that is they're good enough to get the gear and give them a good testing, as they call it. But in my opinion, they're not in the field shooting, you know, a wedding with, you know, 500 or 600 people and having to swap lenses every 10 seconds and really use the cameras to their potential. So if there's anything you don't like on what I say, you know, that's fair enough. I'm telling you my opinion and I'm telling you my honest opinion, and I'm passionate about that, because I would not under any circumstance expect anyone to sell some gear if they're switching out to buy something that might not be good for them. So that's my disclaimer. Everything I tell you now is my honest opinion. I'm going to start off with the positives for the camera. So the main positives for this camera is it's light. Damn, this is one light camera. And what I mean by light, I don't mean just carrying it around, taking a few pictures of birds or cars going by. I'm talking this thing wrapped around your neck for 12 to 14 hours a day while you're on a full professional paid job. So I've got the battery grip on this. I've never been one for battery grips ever. Even with a 5D3, that thing was heavy enough. Sticking the battery grip on it, it just wasn't for me. You know, I'm not a big 6 foot geezer, 5'7". I'm short, and I'm not a big heavy dude, so I want things to be as light as possible. I need to be as nimble as I can. The battery grip on this thing is an absolute gem. It doesn't make the camera really heavy. Even with a battery grip with 3 batteries, this thing is, in fact, even with the 16-55, this thing is still lighter than a Canon 5D Mark III, like, period. There's no arguing that. It is. And I think the main important thing of this camera as well, with the battery grip, is that the battery grip adds features to the camera that you just don't get when you've got it without the battery grip. For instance, we all know about the refresh rate on the EVF. It jumps up to 100 frames a second, so you get a much better refresh rate. Autofocus acquisition without the grip is bloody brilliant, but with the grip, it's phenomenal. Honestly, it's great. So, lightweight camera equals lightweight lenses as well. So the standard 16-55, which is my which is a workforce for any working photographer, which is the 24-70 equivalent. On that camera, even with battery grip, it's not heavy, and I cannot kid you enough when I say I had the Xpro-2 on one shoulder, I had the Xt-2 around my neck. I didn't get fatigue for at least 10 hours. The last 2 or 3 hours, the old back started going, but that's just normal, you know, you're crouching down, bending down, lying down. These things are just the things that may cause you a little bit of pain. It's like any job, if you're on your feet 12 hours, you're gonna hurt. Simple as that. Second positive I want to talk about is what you see is what you get. So what I mean by that is pretty obvious. So when you're shooting and it's a bright sunny day, you've got a couple in front of you, backlit, not a lot of light on their face, you can either use flash to fill those shadows in, or you can use natural light and just overcompensate by a couple of stops or a stop and a half. If you want to black the highlights, that's entirely up to you, it's a personal thing. But it was great, or it is great, to be able to see what you're getting in camera, and you find yourself not having or needing to chimp. Take your picture and you know what is on the screen in your EVF is what you're going to get. I've learned that once I take my image, other than, you know, maybe taking a couple of shots, I don't believe in taking 10 shots of the same thing. I believe 2-3 shots, move on to the next scene, move on to the next pose, etc. But I really believe that you get used to not having to chimp, and the only thing that I do is zoom in just to see that the actual shot was in focus. But again, I can do that while I'm taking the shot and confirm it's in focus anyway. But just be on the safe side, that's the only thing that I do. So what you see is what you get. Killer, killer, killer feature. The bright EVF. I was at the time using the Xpro-2, and I'm jumping from the Xt-2 just for a simple reason, because they're both more or less the same camera. But the Xt-2, I had the brightness turned up to maximum, so everything I could see was, you know, just bright and really, really clear on a really hot summer's day at like midday. It was just really, really bright. There was not a single cloud in the sky. And I put the Xpro-2 up. I was using a different lens. I think I was using a 56-1.2 on it at the time. And I was like, whoa, this is really dark. You know, what's going on? And then obviously I figured out that it was my EVF was turned down. So within like a couple of seconds, just cranked up the EVF, full brightness, and I could see again. So the EVF over the OVF, now, I don't think I could actually go back to shooting a DSLR that doesn't have an EVF. For me, I just don't think I could do that. You save so much more time. The EVF on this thing is just sick. It's sick. I'm telling you, it is so good. Amazing. Point number 3 moves me on to the AF tracking. In a real world environment, I cannot tell you how good the tracking on this camera is. Amazing. It's phenomenal. So there was a couple of instances where I had to rely on the AF tracking on this camera. Well, actually there was a lot of circumstances, but the two main important three or four main important situations were: the first one was bride walking down the aisle. I had it on continuous burst at 11 frames a second. I can tell you it missed one image, and that was the first image where it acquired focus. Walking up the aisle, I shot about 32 shots, one after the other, in focus at f2.8 with a 16-55. No doubt about it, the autofocus tracking acquisition, the way it locks onto the subject, you just feel so confident with the camera. I mean, it literally is like point, shoot your subject, it will get it. It will get it. I'm not joking, this thing will get it. Only thing you have to be careful of is make sure you have it set to the right autofocus custom setting if you're tracking a subject. So if something is walking towards you, actually the standard scenario 1 is very, very good for that. It tracks it brilliantly. In fact, I've done a lot of testing, and in scenario 1, if someone is simply walking towards you, you don't even need zone focusing, just single spot, or a single AF focus with the person walking towards you. This will nail it. Guarantee it, it will nail it. Second situation was bride and groom kiss. This isn't really a very difficult thing for the camera to do, because they're not moving in terms of the depth of field is not moving, they're just moving, you know, close to each other. So you can literally make sure you're on, you know, I mean, you can actually, you can shoot it quite at a shallow depth of field. I think I was using it at the time, possibly the 23 1.4, or it might have been the 23 f2, I can't remember. Every shot was nailed, did not miss a beat, but I wasn't expecting it to miss a beat on that, because it's not a difficult one to actually, you know, not kind of get the shot. The next shot, which was a really important shot for me, and I was nervous taking this shot because it's the first time I've used the Xt-2 to take this shot. So the bride was facing me, and I had about 200 excited young ladies standing behind her for the bouquet catch. So I had never tested this on the Xt-2 before. So just in terms of logic, I put the camera into items appearing suddenly. I believe that's the one with the go-kart that shows you that item. Oh no, that's accelerating and decelerating. I think it's the skier where it shows him jumping over the cliff or the mountain, whatever. And I set it on that in zone focusing, which is the 3x3 box. So 3, 6, 9 focus points in the middle. Continuous, obviously, at 11 frames a second. And again, I was standing on a chair right in front of her. She threw the bouquet. I locked it on the bouquet, and it got every single shot in focus. Every single shot in focus. It did not miss a shot at all. Focusing, I cannot explain how good it is. When I was in the days of the Canon 5D Mark III, that was actually quite good to be able to acquire focusing, but you couldn't really, it wasn't a 1DX, and before I invested in the X system, I was very close to thinking I should really get a 1DX, or maybe, you know, get a 1DX and keep the 5D as a backup camera. I'm so glad I didn't. So glad I didn't, because if the 5D Mark III gave me killer fatigue, I think the 1DX would just, no chance. I don't think I would have kept the camera. But yeah, AF tracking on this thing, killer, awesome. The hype is true. The hype is true. I knew it was good because I've done a lot of testing and I've done other scenarios where it tracked. But when you're getting paid to do a job, you pray, and I mean you pray, it doesn't miss the shot, and it didn't. So, thank you. Killer. Bit sad I just kissed the camera, I know. Okay, so the best thing about this camera as well is when you're shooting, I know what I've got set on the camera. Beautiful. It's just the best thing. I know if I'm changing or moving from different light, I can just quickly switch. I'll be honest, I don't really tend to lock the buttons when I'm working, just simply because I need to get to them quite quickly. I use this a lot in actual auto ISO as well, with my previous auto ISO video that I've done. I'll add a link to that so you can get it. Not every single time, but I did use it for probably about 60% of the whole wedding, because it works a treat and I love it, and it saved me a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time, as you should as a photographer, composing and framing your image. Next, cost. The cost of a full frame camera, something like a 5D Mark III or a Nikon D810 or something like that with the lenses, is hands down a lot more expensive. It is more expensive. The bonuses you have with Canons and Nikons and Sonys as well is purely, there's a lot of third-party manufacturers like Tamron and Sigma producing brilliant lenses. There are a lot of good third-party glass. And with the Fujis, you only really get the Fuji glass, the Samyang stroke Rokinon stroke Bauer, Mitacon, however you pronounce it, glass, a few Zeiss lenses. So you don't have the choice as you have with full frame cameras. Saying that, the Fuji glass that you can get is stellar. Stellar. The sharpness, the detail is second to none. And I mean second to none. And I'm talking comparing this with Canon L glass. Fantastic sharpness and detail. Resolution is great. Lens performance and sharpness, I've just touched on. It's really, really good. Really sharp. Even on high ISOs, 6400 to 12800, I can zoom in, crop if I need to, and I still have a lot of detail there. That's probably the 24 megapixel sensor, but it's nice to see that the lenses can retain the detail of the sensor, considering a lot of them were made for the 16 meg cameras prior. Dynamic range. So the dynamic range is simply, for me, coming from Canon, and everyone knows Canons were never as good as Sony or Nikon cameras for the dynamic range. You know, they were okay, but it was very easy to blow out the highlights and, you know, lose detail in the shadows. With the Fuji, I just feel comfortable. I just feel so comfortable. I know if I want to focus, sorry, if I want to expose for someone's face or a wedding dress, I know I've got scope and room to pull the detail from the shadows. I just have, you know, it's just there. It's, you know, I don't know how many stops of shadows it's got. To be honest, I don't care. I'm not gonna talk about it does 12 stops of dynamic range. I don't care. All I care about is when I'm editing an image in Lightroom or Photoshop, is the detail there for me to pull out of the shadows? Yes. Just yes, there is. So don't be afraid coming from a Nikon. You know, Sony cameras will probably always have better dynamic range. Something like the A7R2. It just will, and it's logical. Sony sells Fuji sensors. Sony are not going to give other camera manufacturers their best sensors. Maybe in 6 months, a year's time, they will do. But for me, the Fuji and the way they put their own spin on the X-Trans sensor, the dynamic range is just simply brilliant, good enough for me. What are the negatives of the camera? There's actually not a lot. But there are a few that are quite considerable. So the first one, I'm not going to call it really a negative, because it's the logic of a mirrorless camera. Batteries. So with batteries, on a 4-day shoot where I took approximately around 5,000 images. It's a lot of images. I don't normally take 5,000 images, by the way. I normally try to stick to about 2,000 to 3,000 images, so I've got something to work with. But this was a big wedding, you know, a really big wedding, a lot of people. And it was actually 2 ceremonies in one wedding. So you had an English style registry and ceremony, and then an Indian ceremony. So I had to do a lot of more. I've done a lot more burst shooting than I would normally like to do, just simply because I didn't want to miss these shots, and I didn't. But this isn't really a negative, because I think it's quite obvious. If you're going to get a smaller camera, you're just going to have smaller batteries. So just be conscious and mindful to either, I got through, for 5,000 shots, I got through 6 batteries. Okay? So 6 batteries, what does that work out to? Roughly, I don't know, what is it, 150, 600 shots of battery, something like that? About 600 shots of battery, which is bloody good actually. That's not bad going. So I had 3 batteries in the Xt-2. Actually, you know what? It wasn't quite 6. It was 7 batteries, because I remember putting one on charge and I pulled it off. So it's actually 7 batteries. So 450 shots, 500 shots, something like that. My maths isn't great, unfortunately. That's why I'm not a mathematician and I'm a photographer. However, just carry lots of batteries with you. You know, just simple. The next time I do a big wedding like that, I'm gonna just have 10 batteries on me, so I haven't got to faff about. Better to have more, better to have smaller batteries and lighter gear as far as I'm concerned. So some people might find that a negative. I personally don't. It doesn't really bother me that much. Second negative, and it's the raw files that you import into Lightroom. Now, I'm not going to talk about detail and what converter's better, and you know, I just want to concentrate on Lightroom because that's my workflow. I don't find Lightroom a problem. I just don't find Lightroom a problem for the Fuji files. I know there's a lot of people out there that use other converters, and I'm so glad and happy for you that they work for you. That's awesome. But for me, I want to use Lightroom because I want to jump in and out of Photoshop as and when I want to. I know Iridium is brilliant. I haven't used it. I hear a lot of people say the detail it retains from the Fuji X files are better. But I just don't seem to see an issue with the Fuji files. And that's probably because I haven't used Iridium. So, as far as I'm concerned, is what I don't know ain't gonna hurt me. I don't care. I just don't care. I've never had a client turn around to me and say to me, your photos look shit, you should have used Iridium. Come on guys, this is just ridiculous. Think of your client. If you're taking an image and you're editing it and post-processing it, they're not gonna zoom into 200% and think, and pixel peep. They're just not. So don't let it stress you out. If your workflow is Lightroom, Photoshop, deal with it. Lightroom, Photoshop. And if Lightroom decide to make it even better, wicked, awesome. I'm sure I'll see a difference. If they decide to offer the dude who owns the Iridium developer, shed loads of money, take him on board and help him develop it even better, then cool, that's fine. But I'm not going to lose no sleep over it. And nor should you. It's different if you're editing 1 or 2 pictures on a street shoot or a couple of model shoots. You know, I get that. I do get that. I understand you want the best. But if you're editing I'm working through thousands of images. The workflow has to work for you, and at this moment in time, Lightroom just does it for me. However, one thing that I don't like about However, one thing I don't like about Lightroom is the way it imports the raw Fuji files. Now, what I mean by that is they're really dark and contrasty. That's one thing I really noticed. They are just dark and contrasty. So a way around that is you just make a flatter profile in Lightroom. So for instance, I just tend to use, I don't use any of the Fuji presets like classic chrome and stuff like that for weddings. I'll just use the Adobe standard. I'll just push the shadows up. I always find X cameras do tend to be between a third and a half a stop darker than what I believe it should be. I believe that's to do with the way that Fuji work with the X-Trans sensor to retain detail. I don't believe they're cheating on ISO. I just, you know, and if they are, I don't care. I'm gonna boost it up anyway, so what difference? Don't get emotional about it. But that's what I found, that they're a little bit too contrasty and a little bit too dark, so I just have to, and I have made a flatter profile in Lightroom, so when I import them and then I edit and put my creative style or art onto images. So, and I know this one's going to get a lot of people emotional, I know, and I know for a fact people are going to be slamming me, and a lot of photography channels and whatever. Don't care. I'm going to be honest. So did my Xt-2 freeze up on these shoots? Yes, it did. But, and there is a caveat. At the time that my Xt-2 froze up, I had SanDisk 128 gig memory cards. They are not UHS-2 cards, okay? They're UHS-1 cards. They're very quick. They're 95 megabytes read and write. So not as fast as the UHS 280 and 300 ones that SanDisk do, but this is why I'm telling you that, because I can't turn around and say to you that my camera froze because it's an issue with Fuji. At the same time, it did freeze 3 times. Luckily, I have the Xpro-2 with me at the same time, so for me, it wasn't an issue. I just swapped cameras, and within the time the camera froze, I managed just to unclip the battery release. In fact, by releasing the battery grip, it unfroze. So I don't know if there's something going on with the hardware, with the battery grip and the camera. I don't know if it's the memory cards. I don't know if it's the batteries. So, to be honest, in the camera on the Xt-2, I always had the Fuji W126S, whatever you want to call it, I can't remember the name of the battery, but the black ones, in the body of the camera. In the grip, I had Xpro-2 whites. Sorry, not Xpro-2, they're called Xpros rather. And that's how I shot. So is it a Fuji problem? Yes. And I'm going to tell you why I state yes. There was a pretty well-known photographer on YouTube that was a working professional photographer. I apologise, I can't remember his name. It was like, I think an Italian or Spanish guy. I can't remember, and if you see this, I'm sorry, I really can't remember your name. I tried to find your video. I don't know if it's been removed from all the abuse you were getting. I can't find it. But this guy was trying to be honest. He's a working professional. He earns money. He had an Xt-2, or has an Xt-2. I don't know if he still has, I don't know. He specifically explained he had the top of the range SanDisk UHS-2 cards, 2 of them in the camera, all 3 batteries in the camera were the W126S. His camera still froze. I don't understand, why do people want to slam the guy for being honest? He's doing you a favour. He's doing you a favour. He's telling you the truth. So why are you sitting there slamming the guy? All these big photography channels that think that they know it all. I'm sorry, guys, you know, it's ridiculous. If a guy's a working professional and he's telling you the truth, deal with it. Deal with it. And he's not the first person to say this. He's not the first person to say this, okay? I know there's going to be some idiots on YouTube that are going to want to slam me for saying this. But guys, I'm doing it for you. I'm telling you the truth. Your Xt-2 might, when I say might, it might freeze. It depends how you use it. This thing got proper use. This thing got proper use. 7,000 images in one day. Within 10 days of working with this camera, and this was what I'm calling proper use, okay? Proper use. I must have shot around 15 to 20,000 images, and it froze up only 3 times. Now I say only 3 times, and I say this very gingerly and gently because I don't want anyone to feel hurt about this. I know some people are really brand loyal. It did freeze. Again, listen to what I'm saying, there is a caveat. Yes, I did not use the top of the range cards in it. Yes, I did not have all 3 Fuji batteries. Please don't get emotional, I'm just explaining my personal experience. Someone else on YouTube a few months ago, before I even spoke about the shooting in a professional environment with the Xt-2, they dropped me an email. They were very humble, and I think it was another Greek, I think it might have been a Greek guy actually from Greece. Again, I'm sorry, even if I knew your name, I wouldn't say it on camera, it wouldn't be fair to you. He simply asked me, Demos, can I ask you a question? Does your Xt-2 freeze up? Within the same email, it stated, the reason I'm asking you this question is because I am using all UHS-2 SanDisk memory cards, the 300 megabyte versions, along with, in the battery grip as well, all the Fuji W12S batteries. So they don't have third-party batteries like I'm using. That's why I'm saying, you know, it could be these. It could be these. So that's why I'm not saying, is it a defective camera, my camera? I don't know. I didn't use the black batteries, I used these batteries. I did not use, very importantly, I did not use the UHS-2 cards, so maybe that is it. But I don't believe that is the problem. I don't believe that's the problem. Because if that was the problem, it would have done it every single time. And I'm talking, I burst shot the arse out of this camera. This camera was used and abused. Used and abused. It's even got battle scars on it. So, this guy was genuine. He was like, I'm really nervous about using my Xt-2 with the battery grip on, with all Fuji batteries and SanDisk memory cards because it froze. That's telling me there is an issue. I don't know if it's a hardware issue with the grip or the camera. I strongly believe it's not the memory cards and it's not the batteries. I really, really believe that. A very interesting thing that Ken, as in AKA the Angry Photographer, said, and I respect his opinion, I really respect his opinion because he does do a lot of testing. You know, hats off to the guy. So Ken, you know, good on you. Keep up the great work. One thing, and this is the reason why I done it, was because in his testing, he found the camera did freeze up, where as long as he had one of the Fuji batteries in the body and third parties in the grip, it didn't really matter. He seemed to notice the freeze ups without the original Fuji batteries, as in the new S versions, in the body. But I just want to explain something which is really important. That's what I was doing, and the camera still froze. But again, there's a but, so don't keep slamming me. Yes, I did not use the UHS-2 cards, but these other guys have done. They have used the UHS-2 cards, and the camera has still froze. So this is my plea to Fuji and to all those professional photographers out there, the people that are brand loyal. Fuji, there seems to be an issue. Please look into it further. Please don't fob people off. I know you guys wouldn't. I know you guys are fantastic for your firmware upgrades, and I'm sure eventually you may find the bug, or if it's a hardware. I don't know what it is. I have a feeling it's something to do with the battery grip. I've got this niggling feeling I think it's a hardware issue rather than a software issue, because I noticed on one of the occasions when the camera froze up, when I started to release the battery grip, it's almost like it disconnected and the camera come back to life. So I think there might be an issue with the battery grip, and I think this is why Fuji may have not been able to do anything about it. Maybe it's a recall in the battery grips, maybe it's a certain amount, that's why they can't figure it out. I don't know. Please don't hate what I'm saying. I'm saying it for your benefit. I'm saying it that your camera might freeze. I don't care it froze on me 3 times, to the regards that I had a spare camera on me, okay? It was no big deal. If someone doesn't have a spare camera and they buy an Xt-2 for events, weddings, paid jobs, and it freezes at that critical point, that to me is a no-no, and secondly, you shouldn't really just have one camera anyway. So, controversial, I know I'm going to get a lot of stick for this, but you know what, if you want to give me stick for being honest, then don't watch. I don't care. I'm going to be honest to my guys. I'm going to be honest to the people that watch these videos that may be in the market of being proper professional photographers and may want to spend in the region of £5,000 to £10,000 because they produce paid work for clients. Final negative after that rant is paintwork. So, if you're a builder, sounds crazy. If you're a builder and you've got a hammer and you bash that hammer and it gets scratched, you're not going to care about it because it's a tool, right? I care about my equipment. However, I don't wrap it up in cotton wool. It's used for a job. From the last outing, I've had a few scratches on the camera. I'm not sure how good this is going to actually come, you know, going to show up on camera. I'm going to try and show you the best that I can, but it's all got scratched here. Actually, you'll notice there's a ding or a crack in the glass, but the good news is this is not the Fuji actual LCD. This is a glass screen protector, quite an expensive one that I bought from Amazon. So it done the job, it saved my screen. So get yourself an LCD glass protector. And yeah, so the main thing was, I can't really show you, it's a bit tricky, but there's a few kind of scratches on the camera. And I noticed that with my Xt-1 as well. You know, I'm not sure if it's just the graphite version that it causes to chip. Saying that, I've seen some really beat up black ones as well. But you know, it's an aesthetic thing. Am I emotional about it? It is what it is, I guess. And you know, all I'm saying is, again, if someone's spending that much money, you'd think it might be a little bit more durable. Finally, is it worth getting the Xt-2 for weddings and events? Without hesitation, yes, 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 yes. Yes. Now, yes, I had 3 lockups. For me, that didn't personally bother me because I have always 2 cameras with me. And I would still call the lockups for me at the time minor because of the situation that I was in, that I had a spare camera. And it happened 3 times over the period of 10 days with approximately 15 to 20,000 shots taken. So yes, annoying. Would I sell my Xt-2 for it? No, never. As far as I'm concerned, this is the ultimate beast. If Fuji can fix that issue, then fantastic, honestly, fantastic. If it is indeed an issue, I don't know. So, if you are looking to get an Xt-2, my advice is it's worth the swap out. Whole hand on my heart, this camera, along with the Xpro-2, the next video will be talking about the Xpro-2 in a wedding environment. This was an absolute gem. Just so happy. Fuji, thank you for building what I will class as one of the best cameras I've just ever used, if not the best. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos coming up real soon. Feel free to follow me on Instagram for personal work, Fuji.X.shooter. Keep an eye out for my other reviews coming up, or sorry, I don't like to call them reviews as such, but just a discussion on other lenses. I'll show you images from the work that I've just done. I'm currently in post at the moment, just editing those images. I will catch you guys all real soon. Thank you very much for watching and see you later. Cheers. Bye.